Recently, I released a video challenging Wing Chun, Aikido, Bujinkan, and Krav Maga practitioners to prove that their martial art works. I received more emails than I expected, so I had to spend quite some time going through all of them. To my surprise, most of them were answers to my challenge from Wing Chun practitioners. And I must say, one of the videos really impressed me, but I'll get back to that later in the video. Now, let's start at the beginning. First of all, what stood out for me was that most of the email senders agreed with my arguments. Even if they sent me footage of Wing Chun being pressure tested or applied in sparring, they mostly agreed that the majority of Wing Chun schools lack the element of pressure testing and often enough make claims based on only anecdotal evidence, or in other words, their personal opinion or someone's story instead of actual proof. I will be honest though, when I made the video challenging Wing Chun practitioners, I did not expect to receive any videos at all, or at best, to receive really bad ones, where the practitioner did cooperative practice with more intensity, but without any live resistance, while claiming that that's enough of a proof of efficiency. After all, that's what happened when I made the same challenge to Aikido 3 years ago. Yet some of the videos I received from Wing Chun practitioners this time surprised me, or at the very least, made me question my earlier established assumptions. One of the most common examples I was sent was that of Tsilala. Tsilala is probably the most famous fighter in the world who represents Wing Chun in the ring. When taking a look at Tsilala's fighting style, two different thoughts came to my mind. On one side of things, it would be difficult to deny that it does look similar to kickboxing or Muay Thai. This brings up an argument which Matt Thornton, a famous martial arts skeptic, makes. There is no Canadian geometry. In other words, geometry is geometry. What works, works. If a country would try to make up their own geometry and would tie it to their tradition, it would end up being similar to regular geometry, but would most likely feature aspects which are cultural but ineffective. If the sole focus is functionality, it could be argued that any geometry will end up working the same way, no matter which place it comes from. This can also be said about martial arts. If you seek functionality and functionality only, it could be argued that striking will end up looking like striking, grappling like grappling, and so on. And that's exactly what happens with martial arts that are primarily focused on functionality. Boxing, kickboxing, and Muay Thai have nearly identical striking mechanics. Only the elements which are based on specific rule sets or conditions vary, such as Muay Thai allowing the use of elbows. When looking at Tsilala's fighting matches, similar conclusions could be made. Many of the techniques he uses do have great resemblance to the formerly mentioned martial arts. But at the same time, I think that this statement alone, without taking the other side of the coin into account, does not do justice. As similar as Tsilala's style looks to kickboxing or Muay Thai in some regards, his fighting style also speaks of his Wing Chun roots. His stance is narrow, his hands are focused on his center line, he focuses on parrying, and he also seems to favor chaining his strikes together. It would be easy to say, well, Tsilala's Wing Chun is simply kickboxing with some Wing Chun elements, but I feel that relying on this statement alone without any further investigations or considerations would be a cop-out. So I decided to dig deeper and investigate more about Tsilala. Since Tsilala is based in China and does not appear to speak English, the best source I was able to reach in order to learn more about him was Jerry of Fight Commentary Breakdowns, who broke down a lot of Tsilala's fights and is in direct contact with him. My question to Jerry was if Tsilala practiced kickboxing or Muay Thai, and if Wing Chun was only an addition to his fighting style. Here's how Jerry responded. Tsilala has 3 styles represented. He's got Wang Shang Lung Wing Chun primarily. Besides that, he's also got Tongbei Kung Fu from a Sifu named Lao Na. And then he's done a little bit of BJJ because it's a necessity when doing MMA fights. So he's as close to pure Kung Fu as possible. To me, I find that to be rather impressive. If what Jerry is saying is true, Tsilala managed to reach a level where he can fight Muay Thai and MMA fighters on equal level by primarily training Kung Fu, which proves that it can be functional. Tsilala also deserves great respect for taking his martial arts practice out there, testing it, and constantly improving it through resistance and not only traditional drills. Some could say though that maybe Tsilala is a unique phenomenon, that it's something that only he can pull off. But that is where the other emails that I received come in. Another practitioner that responded to my emails was Marco Tancredi, an applied Wing Chun practitioner since 2005. In the email, he told me that during his training, he did a lot of sparring, focus mitts, and fighting drills. He also ended up competing. What's unique about his story is that based on Marco, he did spar a lot with Thai fighters and would occasionally ask them for some tips. But other than that, he has never trained anything else but Wing Chun. Looking at his fight videos, I saw a lot of similarities to Tsilala's style, which proved to me yet again that Wing Chun trained with a lot of sparring and pressure testing can become effective. There was also something else that stood out for me in Marcus's email. At the beginning of his training, for Marco, sparring and Wing Chun were synonymous, but when he started exploring other Wing Chun schools, he was shocked at how little sparring there was there, if any at all. To quote him, "There was no conditioning, no pressure testing, no timing drills, and for sure no sparring. Never did I get a straight answer as to why." Before I started this challenge, how Marco described other schools he got exposed to, that was my general impression of Wing Chun. Lots of outdated techniques, dead drills, and cultural aspects, topped with "it's too deadly for sparring" claims. At the same time, I received a fair amount of Wing Chun sparring and pressure testing videos, enough to reassess my opinion. For a moment, I wasn't sure. Did Wing Chun evolve over the years, and the majority of schools are pressure testing and sparring now? Or am I only getting the cream of the crop, which was starting to change my impression of this practice? In order to find out, I went on to Reddit's martial arts and Wing Chun communities to ask how common sparring in Wing Chun is. First of all, I was pointed out that many Wing Chun schools confuse a practice named Chi Sao for sparring. A quick look at it made it clear as to why. Many martial arts practitioners confuse pressure testing with intensity. The formerly mentioned practice definitely has a level of speed and intensity. I would even dare say that these two practitioners in this video example are showing impressive skills. But it is not sparring. There's a slight chance that one of these practiced motions would come up in actual fighting, but to begin with, there's no aim in either of the practitioners to reach and hit the other person. The practice is all done in mid-air and thus does not teach a person to deal with someone who is really aiming to hit you. As it is said, you become good at what you train. If you train mid-air strikes and defense, that's exactly what you will learn, unless you will add the elements of resistance and spontaneity later on. Another element which shows that this practice is not sparring are the ending moments when one of the practitioners takes the other one down or finishes him. It is confusing too, since it looks like one of them defeated the other, hinting at a level of competition and resistance. Yet when you take a closer look, when the practitioners for some reason decide that one of them won, the other one clearly stops and waits for the first practitioner to finish him off, while showing no signs of resistance at all. Yet again, an element of complete surrendering under very specific conditions, where most fighting in reality would still continue, does not teach you fighting unless that is trained additionally, of what we see no proof here. Once again, this practice does look impressive for a regular viewer and may even seem convincing enough as sparring, but it is not. Unless there's active resistance, spontaneity, and a true aim from both practitioners to get each other through the entire practice, these developed skills will not come up in sparring or fighting when the mentioned conditions will be included. To quote Bruce Lee, "You can't learn to swim on dry land." And it seems that many Wing Chun schools confuse this practice for swimming, while really they are training on dry land. As I continue to investigate the responses on Reddit about how common sparring is in Wing Chun, although there were no studies to rely on, the majority of our Wing Chun and our martial arts members agreed. Only 5 to 20% at best Wing Chun schools do sparring or pressure testing. Yet again, to be honest, that is still more than I initially expected. Seeing all these Wing Chun pressure testing videos, I was impressed and discovered a newfound respect for each individual who took upon the mantle of pressure testing their martial art. At the same time, those were not the individuals that I was really challenging. In fact, these individuals were the ones who agreed with me and shared my desire to promote the importance of pressure testing, alive drilling, and sparring. Meanwhile, the people who make claims without being able to prove them with evidence are still on my radar, since saying that my practice is deadly while relying on no proof is no option. But I have to admit, a part of me was wrong. It seems that Wing Chun can be pressure tested and used in sparring, and the following video made the greatest impression on me. The Wing Chun fighter here is clearly using his style, and he's doing a pretty good job against an apparent boxer. Does that prove that Wing Chun is superior to boxing, kickboxing, or Muay Thai? Not at all. That is still a question to be explored, tested, and answered. Do many Wing Chun schools confuse sparring and train on dry land, so to speak, believing that they would defeat everyone without evidence? I would dare say yes, but one thing can be said for certain: there's more to Wing Chun than I expected. Click right here to see the original challenge I made to Aikido, Bujinkan, Wing Chun, and Krav Maga practitioners. If you want to see how I became disillusioned with Aikido myself, click here. Until I see you in another video, I wish you to own your journey.